My name is Voss. I'm a 26-year-old wildlife researcher. And what I'm about to tell you is something I have never spoken out loud. Not to the police, not to my family, not to the rescue team that pulled me out of the Siberian taiga with frostbite on 7 of my fingers and a core body temperature that the doctor said should have killed me 3 times over. I survived 11 days alone in one of the most hostile environments on planet Earth. But here's what no one knows. I didn't survive alone. The research station was only 40 kilometers northeast of where our snowmobile broke down. 40 kilometers. In normal conditions, on flat terrain, that's a long but manageable trek. Maybe 2 days, maybe 3. But the Siberian taiga in October is not normal conditions. I was part of a 2-person team, myself and Dr. Pavel, a 54-year-old Russian ornithologist who had been studying the Siberian crane migration for 30 years. He knew this forest better than most people know their own neighborhoods. He had maps in his head, star charts memorized, and a quiet confidence about the wilderness that made you feel safe just standing next to him. When the snowmobile engine cracked, a deep metallic groan followed by silence, Pavel didn't panic. He stepped off the machine, looked at the sky the way an old sailor reads the ocean, and said something in Russian that I later had translated. The forest has decided something. I thought he was being poetic. He wasn't. We had supplies for 4 days. Emergency rations, a medical kit, 1 thermal sleeping bag between us, a handheld radio that had been cutting in and out since morning, and a flare gun with 2 cartridges. Pavel had a hunting knife. I had a multi-tool and a small folding saw I used for collecting branch samples. We set up camp beside the broken snowmobile, used it as a windbreak, and Pavel got a fire going in under 8 minutes using bark strips and a magnesium fire starter. I remember thinking, this is fine, we're gonna be fine. The station would notice we hadn't checked in. They'd send someone by morning. That was the last moment I felt safe for 11 days. Somewhere around 2 a.m., I woke up to Pavel standing completely still at the edge of the firelight. Just standing, staring into the black tree line. I asked him what was wrong. He didn't answer for a long time. Then he said, very quietly, "Don't look at the trees." Pavel was gone by morning. Not dead, not taken, gone. His boots were still beside the fire. His knife was still in his pack. There were no tracks in the snow leading away from camp, and I checked obsessively on my hands and knees in the gray dawn light. The snow around our camp was completely undisturbed except for my own footprints and the deep impressions where we had both been sleeping. Pavel Orlov, a man who had survived 30 Siberian winters, had vanished from inside our camp in the night without leaving a single footprint. I want you to sit with that for a second. No, footprints. I used the radio for 40 minutes straight. Static. I fired one of the 2 flares into the morning sky and watched the red light arc above the tree line and die. Nothing came. So I made a decision that survival experts will tell you is correct and that every cell in my body was screaming was wrong. I stayed put. You stay with the vehicle. You stay where rescuers will look. You do not wander into the Siberian taiga alone in October. I stayed, and on the second night, something came to the edge of my firelight. I heard it before I saw it. Not footsteps, more like the sound of pressure. Like the air itself was being pushed aside by something very large moving very slowly. The pine trees at the far edge of the light began dropping snow from their branches, one after another, in sequence, like something was walking between them. And then it stopped. I stared into the darkness for 4 hours without moving. My fire burned down to almost nothing, and I was too terrified to reach for more wood. The temperature dropped to somewhere around minus 23 Celsius. At dawn, whatever it was gone. But in the snow, just at the absolute edge of where the firelight reached, there was a dead Arctic hare. Freshly killed. Placed, not dropped, not fallen, placed with its legs folded beneath it like an offering, exactly where I would see it first thing in the morning. I ate it. I know how that sounds. But I was already hungry, already cold, already alone. And somehow, and I cannot explain this, somehow the hare made me feel less afraid. Like whatever left it was not there to hurt me. I told myself it was a coincidence. By day 3, I had established a routine. because routine is what keeps your mind from fracturing when you are alone in the wilderness. Morning, check surroundings, collect firewood, melt snow for water. Afternoon, attempt radio contact, maintain fire, eat sparingly. Evening, build fire as large as safely possible before dark. Night, do not look at the trees. That last rule wasn't from any survival manual. I made it myself, because every night between roughly midnight and 3 a.m., I could feel it out there. Sometimes I could see the shadow, a massive darkness between the trees that was darker than the rest of the dark. Shaped wrong, too tall, shoulders that curved forward like a question mark. It never crossed into the firelight. It never made a sound I could identify. But every single morning, there was food. Day 3, 2 small fish, frozen solid, placed on a flat stone near the fire. Day 4, a bundle of edible pine cambium, stripped and stacked. Day 5, nothing, but I woke to find my fire had been rebuilt while I slept, fed with thick logs that I hadn't placed there, still burning hot at dawn. Day 6, the temperature dropped catastrophically. A blizzard that came with no warning and hit like a wall. I was completely exposed. I had burned through most of my nearby wood supply, and my tarp was tearing from the wind. I gave up on day 6. I want to be honest about that. I sat in the screaming white dark, and I stopped fighting. I closed my eyes. I had been awake for almost 40 hours. My hands had stopped hurting, which meant they were past the point of pain, which meant they were dying. I closed my eyes, and something sat down behind me. I felt the heat before I understood what was happening. An enormous, overwhelming heat, like sitting with your back against a furnace. Something massive positioned itself directly behind me, between me and the direction of the wind. The blizzard was still raging, but suddenly I was in a pocket of stillness and warmth. I could hear the wind tearing through the trees, but it wasn't reaching me. I did not turn around. I don't know if that was instinct, fear, or something deeper. Some ancient part of the human brain that knows there are things in this world you are not supposed to look at directly. Like an eclipse, like something sacred. I sat there for 6 hours with that heat at my back, while the blizzard destroyed the world around me. And when the storm broke at dawn, and I finally turned around, nothing was there, but I was alive. And in the snow, pressed deep, were impressions that I cannot explain and will not try to fully describe. Enormous, not human. Not any animal I have seen in 12 years of wildlife research. Not anything that should exist. By day 7, I had stopped being afraid. That probably sounds like the most disturbing part of this story. And maybe it is. But fear is exhausting. And I had been running on fear for 6 days. And at some point, the human brain simply files certain things under accepted reality and moves on. My reality was this. Something in the taiga was keeping me alive. I didn't know what it was. I didn't need to know. It fed me, warmed me, and stood guard over me in the dark. In 11 days, in one of the most dangerous environments on Earth, I did not encounter a single predator. No wolves, no bears woken early from hibernation, nothing. In a forest that Pavel had once told me was dense with apex predators, I was completely untouched. On day 8, I did something that I know was irrational. I talked to it, not looking at the trees, just speaking out loud into the dark, in the direction of that deeper shadow. I told it my name. I told it about my mother, who had died 2 years earlier and who had always been terrified I would die in a place like this. I told it that I wasn't ready to die. I told it I had a younger sister who still needed me. I talked for 2 hours until my voice was raw. When I finished, there was a silence so complete it felt like the forest was holding its breath. And then, from somewhere deep in the black between the pines, there was a sound. Low, resonant, almost like breathing, but structured, rhythmic in a way that felt deliberate. Not language, not any sound a known animal makes. But it felt, in a way I cannot scientifically defend, like an answer. The rescue helicopter found me on the morning of day 11. Later, the search and rescue coordinator told me something that has kept me awake on many nights since. He said that they had actually given up searching my grid sector the previous evening. Weather conditions, dwindling probability of survival, limited fuel, the standard calculations that turn a rescue into a recovery. They had marked my sector as low priority and were redirecting resources. But that final morning, just after dawn, one of the helicopter pilots reported seeing something strange on his thermal imaging scanner. A massive heat signature, the size of a truck, he said, moving in a straight line through the forest at high speed. They followed it. It led them directly to my camp, then disappeared. The pilot filed a report. It was attributed to equipment malfunction. I was airlifted out. 7 fingers with varying degrees of frostbite. Mild hypothermia. Dangerously low weight. Otherwise, physically intact. Pavel Orlov was never found. No remains. No tracks. No evidence. The official report lists him as lost in the wilderness. A tragic but not uncommon outcome in that part of the world. His family received a folded flag and a pension. I received a mild reprimand for taking insufficient supplies into the field. I have been asked by the 2 people I have ever told pieces of this story to whether I think the thing in the forest was dangerous. Here's my honest answer. I think it is dangerous the way a glacier is dangerous, or the way lightning is dangerous. Not malicious, not cruel, simply operating according to rules that have nothing to do with human comfort or human survival. A force of nature that is so far outside our category of understanding that words like dangerous or safe simply don't apply. I think it was curious about me the way I am curious about a species I've never encountered in the field. I was something small and struggling and outside my habitat, and it watched me the way a researcher watches, with distance and with something that I can only describe ridiculously as professional interest. I think it kept me alive, not because it cared about me specifically, but because letting me die would have ended the observation. I left the research station 2 months after my rescue. I no longer work in the Siberian taiga. I live in Berlin now. I work in a lab. I study migration patterns through satellite data on a screen. But every October, when the temperature drops and the first frost comes, I wake up at 2 a.m. and I stand at my window and I look out at the dark and I think about the forest and the fire and the warmth at my back in the middle of a blizzard. And sometimes, just sometimes, I feel like something is looking back.